I was still in uniform when my father told me my leg wasn't worth $5,000. I had one boot off, the other half laced, knee blown up like a balloon under camel fabric that couldn't stretch enough. The clinic had just said the word disability, not as a scare tactic, as a timeline. I called home because that's what you do when your world tilts and you need someone to anchor it. My dad answered, upbeat, like I'd called to chat. I said, "Dad, I'm hurt. It's serious." I gave him the clean version. Torn ligaments, surgery needed fast, $5,000 upfront if I went off base. I said I'd pay him back. I promised it like it was a sacred oath. And he didn't even raise his voice when he said it. "Wasi," he told me, calm as a weather report, "we just put a down payment on a boat. This isn't a good time." In the background, I heard my mom exhale like my pain was an inconvenience. My sister laughed, an actual laugh, like the idea of me needing help was some weird punchline. My dad added, almost kindly, "You're young, you'll adjust." That was the moment something in me shut off. Not anger, not tears, just a quiet click, like a lock turning. Because when the people who are supposed to show up decide you're optional, you learn something you can't unlearn. And that lesson doesn't fade, it sharpens. The injury happened during training, one of those days that's supposed to be boring. Same route, same pace, same weight on my back, no hero story, no explosion, no dramatic soundtrack. Just a misstep under load. I heard it before I felt it, a wet snap that didn't belong in a human body. Then heat, like someone poured boiling water into my knee. Then the ground came up too fast. Pain in the military is normal. You learn to file it away. Sore feet, bruises, strained muscles, that's background noise. This wasn't background noise. This was the kind of pain that steals your breath and replaces it with static. I tried to stand and my leg folded like it belonged to someone else. The medic was there in seconds, 2 fingers pressing near the joint, eyes narrowing. "Don't move," he said. Not gentle, serious. At the clinic, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while they cut my pant leg and wrapped swelling that kept growing. The skin went tight and shiny, turning ugly colors like bruises were blooming in real time. The PA pulled up the MRI and didn't sugarcoat it. "This is significant ligament damage," she said. "Possibly more. You need surgery." "How soon?" I asked. She paused, just long enough to tell the truth without saying it. "This week," she finally said. "If you wait, you risk long-term instability, chronic pain, permanent limitations." I nodded like she told me what time it was. But the problem wasn't surgery. It was the system. Anyone who served knows the waiting. Approvals, referrals, signatures from people who never meet you deciding how much your body is worth. They told me the earliest approval was weeks away. Weeks I didn't have. The PA lowered her voice like she was breaking protocol. "If you can go off base," she said carefully, "you should." "How much?" I asked. She wrote a number on a scrap of paper and slid it over. 5,000. Just to get in the door. That night, the barracks were loud. Music, gaming, laughter spilling through thin walls. Life continued around me like nothing had happened. I sat on my bunk with my leg elevated on a hoodie, staring at my phone. I didn't want to call home, not because I was proud, because I already knew. But I called anyway and got exactly what I expected. When I hung up, I didn't cry, I didn't punch a wall, I didn't tell my buddies. I just sat there with the sound of other people living their normal lives, and I let reality settle into my bones. My parents weren't unable, they were unwilling. There's a difference. 2 days later, I was in my small off-base apartment, moving on crutches like every step came with a tax. I ran numbers until my head hurt. Credit cards, personal loans, anything, everything felt like trading my future for my ability to walk. Then someone knocked. I opened the door and my brother stood there, grease on his sleeves, exhaustion in his face. He worked at a mechanic shop outside town. Long hours, low pay, hands always cut up. He took one look at my leg and swore. "They didn't help you," he said. Not a question. I shook my head. He didn't lecture, didn't ask for details. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a wad of bills, 10s and 20s, wrinkled like they'd been clenched too long. He pressed it in my hand. 800, he said. I sold my tools, all of them. I stared at him like I couldn't process the words. You need those, I said. He shrugged like it was obvious. I need you walking, he answered. I'll figure out the rest. My parents had equity, assets, a boat payment, and a whole performance of being fine. My brother had nothing, and he gave me everything he had. I took the money because it solved nothing financially, but it solved something else. It showed me what love actually looks like. I went to a lender the next day, the kind of place that smells like burnt coffee and desperation, the kind of desk where the person across from you talks slow and friendly while the numbers quietly chew your life apart. He asked, "Do you understand what you're signing?" I said, "Yes," and I signed anyway, because I wasn't going to limp through the rest of my life so my parents could float on a lake pretending everything was perfect. Surgery was 2 days later. Lying on that gurney, staring at ceiling tiles, I kept hearing my father's voice. "We just bought a boat." Like that sentence was supposed to make sense. When I woke up, my leg was wrapped and braced and aching, but the surgeon came in and said the words I needed. "We got it in time," he told me. "If you do rehab, you should recover fully." Relief hit so hard it almost made me nauseous. Then reality hit right behind it. The first payment was due in 3 days. My bank account showed $40-something. I sat there doing math that refused to work. And then I remembered something stupid. On the counter was a crumpled receipt from a gas station, water, crackers, and a scratch-off ticket I bought while waiting for meds, just to feel like the universe could still surprise me. I checked it on my phone, once, then again. I didn't yell, I didn't celebrate, I just went still. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to breathe, enough to stop drowning, enough to do something other than survive. I didn't tell my family. I called an attorney. The attorney's office was all glass and quiet power, the kind of place where people don't waste words. He listened while I explained everything, the injury, the refusal, the predatory loan, the pattern. When I finished, I said, I want 2 things, protection, and I want to know my parents' real financial situation, better than they know it. He studied me like he was deciding what kind of person I was. That second part, he said, carefully, changes the direction of your life. I know, I replied. That's why I'm here. A few days later, he handed me a file thick enough to hurt someone. This, he said, tapping the folder, is the truth behind their lifestyle. The truth was uglier than I expected. My childhood home, the nest egg, was refinanced to the edge, behind on payments, drowning in warnings they'd ignored. The boat wasn't bought, it was financed like a fantasy. My sister's business wasn't a business, it was a cash leak patched with borrowed money and home equity. My parents weren't wealthy, they were performing wealth, and they refused me $5,000 not because they couldn't, because they wouldn't interrupt the performance for me. I sat there staring at the numbers until my jaw tightened. My lawyer asked, "Do you want to protect yourself from the fallout?" I closed the folder. "No," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "I want to control it," I told him. And that's when the plan became real. We created a company, nothing tied to me, clean name, clean structure, no family fingerprints. Then we approached the lenders holding my parents' debt. Here's something most people don't realize. Banks don't love messy loans. They love certainty. They'll sell a bad situation for less than it's worth if it means they can wipe it off the books. And I had cash. So I bought the debt. Not for revenge, for clarity, for control. Within days, I went from the daughter they dismissed to the entity that had legal claim over their house, their loans, their illusion. They didn't know, and I made sure they didn't find out, not yet. An intermediary contacted them, professional voice, polished language, the kind of tone my parents always trusted more than their own instincts. He offered them relief, a sale-leaseback arrangement, no foreclosure, no public embarrassment, a strategic restructuring. They could stay in the house, keep appearances, even get a small credit line to stabilize. My parents loved it instantly, because people who live for optics will sign anything if it lets them keep the image. The contract was long, dense, and inside it was a compliance clause with teeth, One missed payment, one violation, and the agreement terminated automatically, no second chances, no sympathy, no family. They didn't read it. They never read anything they think they're entitled to survive. They signed, and on the same night, I stood up without crutches for the first time. My leg held. I took one careful step, then another. And for the first time since the injury, I smiled, not because I'd won, but because I could finally stand on my own. From the outside, nothing changed. My parents told friends they'd restructured and played it like a victory. My sister posted champagne photos with captions about alignment and abundance. They looked relaxed because they thought the danger passed. They had no idea they were tenants in a house they used to own. I kept my distance and focused on rehab. Balance work, resistance bands, controlled steps turning into strength. My physical therapist told me one day, "You're not just healing, you're correcting what was off before." He was right.